What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another pound for pound ATL. This time, as always, joined by my main man, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, it's a beautiful day. Get ready for the holiday weekend.
Yeah, sir.
Um, is it preseason yet?
No, man, I wish. Boy, I wish. Hey, we do have, for those who can attend, we do have an open practice next Friday. So a week from today, when we're recording this, I don't know when y'all are going to be watching this, but uh, from the week from recording, we'll have I'll be seeing live Falcons in uniform doing football type things. And I'm very, very excited about
Is,
that.
is this the one at the Benz?
Yes. This is
So it turns out I actually can go because I'm
sweet.
off next Friday with a
Even
comp
better.
day.
Even better.
So yeah, I
Eh,
totally I was not I did not I just saw Friday. Oh, can't do it.
right, right, right.
Uh, so
So we will meet you at the bins then, sir. And link up there. So anyway, but what has got us together today is earlier in this week, somebody, I think it was Katie. She used to be on Good Morning Football. I'm trying to remember her name now because y'all know how I am uh, with names. It's Kate something. Should have had that pulled up before we got going. Anyway, she had put out a little video clip talking about Bijan Robinson in Atlanta, and how Arthur Smith could use him, and it was a really good, um, like
Oh, it was her and
it
basically
was
another guy, wasn't it?
yes, mm-hmm.
It was like a 3 something minute long clip.
Right, and he was
Uh,
breaking down some of the how Bijan could be used in Atlanta. Sorry, I was trying to find it. It's not worth it. But anyway, and so that got me thinking about the need, and talk always goes back to needing and having to generate explosive plays. And I thought to myself, Arthur Smith does strike me as like an old school style coach, as far as like wanting to grind you into the dust, play good defense, almost very much like Nick Saban esque back in the day. For all you Georgia and Alabama fans out there, um, very like old school approach in a sense. But he has a lot of creativity, a lot of like wrinkles to how he gets his guys in space. It doesn't look like the rest of the NFL, so therefore the vast majority of the fans will look at it and go, "Oh, well, he's not nearly as creative. It looks boring and because we're not slinging the ball all over the yard." But that got me to thinking and got me to looking at how important are explosive plays, to uh, like football in general. So last year's top offenses was like San Francisco, KC, Buffalo, and Philadelphia. That's kind of was your top tier offenses. And as I was doing my research, I come across this article that talked about the likelihood of scoring when you have an explosive play in the drive, goes up tremendously.
yeah.
Okay, which makes sense, right? You're getting chunk plays.
So
Okay,
yeah, like do you like it when you can get those 13, 14 play drives that chew up 8 minutes off the clock and things like those are when you can finish those off with touchdowns, those are awesome.
yeah,
The
but
problem is having to get through 13 or 14 plays or even 10 plays in a drive without something either catastrophic happening to turnover, whatever,
right.
or you get down there and then you've used up all this time. You're maybe goal to go situation, you go for it on fourth and whatever, fourth and goal, and then you don't make it. Then you come away with nothing. You just like used
All
up
you
a
did
lot
was
of
chew clock.
now,
Yeah.
now that's there's not that can be a good thing for like the long term in the game, but it still feels like a wasted opportunity when that happens.
For the most part, on average, you get 60 to 70 offensive plays. Okay.
Yep.
So, and the article that I was reading broke it down basically you have on average 6 plays to score. That's on average. Okay. So you get like 10, anywhere from 8 to 10 possessions, a game. That's 5 in each half. And you get, roughly 6 plays to try to score, right?
Mhm.
This is on average. Yes, you have your 10, like when you have a long drive because the announcers are always going to make the statement, you know, this is the 14th play of the drive because it's a big deal that you've had the ball that long.
Yep.
So, like, generally speaking, you start at your 25, you start at your negative, so you start at the negative 25, and you have 6 plays to march at 75 yards. So
Mhm.
you essentially need to average 10 yards a play or a first down a play, right?
Yeah.
So in that aspect, yes, then it does tend to lead to the fact that if you have an explosive play in
Mhm.
the drive, at least one, your odds of scoring go way up.
Yep.
And so I got to thinking, everybody always equates the explosive play to passing plays. We think of, the quarterback with a huge arm, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, having to throw it all the way down the field. But the explosion can come in different forms, and you can be accomplished, quite a bit. Brady won 6, titles, one not too long ago, without having the biggest arm in the world.
Mhm.
You're able to design a play where your receiver gets into space and can get that big chunk. Your air yards on that play may be 10 air yards, but the
Well, it
play
might only be
result,
like 5 yards.
right, or 5 yards, and the result of the play is, 40 yards.
Yep.
So I found this interesting, uh, let's see, found this interesting chart here. Bam. Check that out. Everybody
Yep.
likes a good chart. You probably can't see it now, but we're going to make it bigger.
Man, I work all day with charts, man. I love them.
You love charts. Like that's your life. You're a
I do.
charting man. You're a charting fool. Okay. So as I stated, like your top offenses last year, this is all last year's numbers. And this is just dealing with explosive runs and explosive passes or what you gave up, defensive wise. Okay. Philly ranked number 2 with 107 explosive passes and 44 explosive runs. Now, we really feel like Philly had a really good run game, with Jalen Hurts and Sanders and all that jazz. But what I want you to take a look at, Atlanta was 15th, ranked 15th last year in explosive plays. So middle of the pack. We have well documented the roster issues, so we're not going into that. But
Yep.
this is just straight up and down with what we had last year. We were middle of the pack. We had 48 explosive runs.
Yep.
So we actually have 4 more explosive runs than Philly did.
Mhm.
And we had a good bit, almost double the amount of explosion that in the run game that KC had.
Mhm.
Now, KC killed everybody at 124 explosive plays, but what do you expect from, like, I don't think you would expect anything less from Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows the situation that we had. The Falcons had 69 pass explosion plays.
Giggity.
I was wondering if you're going to hit me with a nice. Anyway, but that's like for what we had going on yesterday, or not yesterday, last season with the receivers that we had, the quarterback situations, and obviously, like the run game was great, but it didn't start off that way. It started off just average, and it took a little while to gain speed. I think by the end of the season, we turned in pretty decent numbers. Like you beat out the Rams. Obviously, they had their issues. Trying to think of another. Like you beat out or you were pretty close with the Chargers. They
Yeah.
had a lot more. They had probably about 30 more passing plays, but
Yeah, but
you would
they
expect
had
with
only had they only had half the like less than half of the
the runs.
running plays.
So here's a real interesting one: is the Giants, who were a playoff team. You were better in the explosion than the Giants,
Mhm.
and almost like they only had a few more like explosive, Danny Dimes, and salt in the wound, so to speak. Like you had the same amount of explosion for, and I find it interesting. And I guess that's like when this can't be just numbers because Chicago's ranked 23rd. I think the
And they're,
defense has a lot to do with it.
yeah, yeah.
But they were pretty. You were on par, like explosion offensively, with the Chicago Bears just about. So that's where we were at last year. Obviously, they're hoping for bigger gains, this year. Now that you have Ritter installed as the main guy, um, yeah, the net difference. I think it was Chicago's defense is what really tanked them.
Oh yeah. Because
Because they,
Atlanta was like what -1 is what it looks like.
yeah, we were -1 in net difference from the offense to the defense, so that's
Yeah.
pretty good. Like your differential there is like for Philly, like total explosive on offense was 151. They limited it to 102 on defense. So that's what gave them such a good differential. Same
Yep.
thing with KC. They were able to limit as well. So now here comes like the crux of the situation is that we you want to get better, right? We got to get better than what we
Yeah.
were. I'm trying to get all my stuff pulled up here. That makes my compelling argument. One more. So what?
I've
Go
got a
for it.
compelling argument for you.
Yeah,
Let's add on offense more explosive plays, and on defense, if we can limit those explosive plays, then you know what? We might be winning more games than we lose.
dude, I think
Uh,
you're on to something there, buddy.
I need to talk to Arthur Smith right away.
Sign him up. Sign
I'm
him
not
up.
sure. I'm not sure if he knows.
Right? If you limit the opponent's explosive plays.
Play
All right.
defense? Who knew?
So obviously we brought in, Bijan Robinson.
Yes.
Number 8th overall pick for us. They're expecting a lot out of him. This was like his splits or the situational runs from last year. This is what I want to focus in on. I don't know how well you can see that right there. I think I got I can't move it down. All right. You can see the numbers 41 and 12. This
Yes.
is 10 plus yards. Last year he had 41 10 plus yards. And an explosive play for running is 10 plus yards. As we said before, you have 6 plays to go 75 yards.
Yes.
So you need to get over a little over 10 yards a play, essentially, or a big chunk helps. He had 12 runs of 20 plus yards or more last year. So
Okay.
that's a pretty good clip. There's something that he's shown the ability to do is to, get open like that. Let's see here.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
if you look at from a running perspective, if you go back and I'm not saying to do it, but if we were to go back and look at that first one, 48 running like explosive running plays may not be like number one, but it's
mhm,
up there. Like I think San Francisco I saw had 50. There might have been another one that had 49 or 48. So it was like top two, three in the league as far as explosive running plays.
right.
And the explosion, the additions to the explosive plays needs to come from the passing game. And I think we saw more explosive plays in the passing game, maybe not total number wise,
Mhm,
but I would say we saw more explosive plays in the passing game on a per play basis with Ritter in the game than we did with Mariota.
right. And that's something that we might be able to look at. But in the passing game, he had 10 plus, 15 plus
Yeah.
yard plays. So he was in double digits there and 4 in the 25 plus. So he can help out in that particular situation as well. And
Oh yeah.
this is not just about Bijan because this is Tyler Algier, his last year in college. His runs 10 plus yards. he had 40 plus or 40 runs of 10 plus yards.
Yep.
He had 20 plus of 14 or 14 runs of 20 plus yards. So you got a two-headed monster of guys who are used to getting like chunks,
Chunks.
and you're like, oh well, Jr. How did that? I mean, that was in college for Tyler. What did that look like in the pros? We're just so glad you asked, Jonathan, what it looked like in the pros,
Man,
because
I always come with the good questions.
you do. Now he had 21 plus or 21 runs of 10 plus yards,
Hmm.
designed runs of 15 plus. He had 13 runs. So that's 33 runs of what is considered an explosive play.
Of how many total explosive plays? 48?
Of 48, he had 33 of them or
Yeah.
34
So,
of them.
so like 66% or 2/3,
Right,
roughly.
right. So now you're adding Bijan to that mix. And then you're talking about, let's just see if I can pull it up real quick. Drake London. So, all right, let's see here. Oh, this is what? Okay, not rushing, obviously.
Come
We
on,
see.
let's see it. Let's see how many explosive plays did Drake London give us in the rushing game? If he didn't give us any, we need to
Oh,
replace him
he's
with
giving
Bob.
us nothing. He's giving us nothing in the rushing game. It does not. I'm surprised that they don't give like an explosive type number, yards after or yards after catch. Um, he had 231 yards after catch. His long, here you go. You can say this. He had his long was 40 yards, but there was 31 yards, 22 yards, 30, 10, 15, 20. Like these are all explosive catches,
Yeah.
you know. So he's good for one every game at least. So you're adding all this together in a way that I think most people aren't necessarily used to seeing a offense operate,
Hmm.
but I do feel like you're going to get the explosion. You're going to get that chunk. Um,
Well, the way this offense is constructed, it is built on you know body blow, body blow, 3, 4, 5 yards at a time for the majority of your plays,
mhm.
and then a handful of times in a game, anywhere between 5 and 10 times a game. Or that's what we should be doing at least. Uh, Anywhere between 5 and 10 times a game, you try to go for the haymaker. You try to go for the big blow, the big, uh, you know, big right hand cross or left hand cross if you're a softball. You try to go with that big hit. Um, and if the offense executes at the little small like hitches, the little quick outs, the speed outs and stuff like that, and then the four gets anywhere from 4 to 5 yards per rush. Then you start drawing that defense in, gives them less reaction time, and then you play action pass, suck guys up, and then you hit them up over their head for 15, 20, 30 yards at a pop. And if you could do that on a consistent basis, you're not going to hit all of them, but
Right,
if you can hit that on a consistent enough basis, then your offense is going to be extremely hard to stop. And you might pop one for pop a homer every now and then, whether that's from Bijan or Drake or whoever. Um, you pop one for a touchdown for like 50, 60 yards, and then that you don't have to worry about are we going to be able to run 10, 12 plays in a row.
right.
So it helps you to score in a better, helps you to score better there. So,
Now I'm not going to play it because I want to get us in trouble. But it was Kay Adams. I
yep.
finally found the video, so y'all go check this video out. And it's a really good explanation. It's a really good breakdown on the possibilities of how you're going to develop that explosive type play in the run game and the system that we currently have.
Well, and they made a really good point. Like literally, they showed Avery Williams out there. They showed Algier out there in some stuff. But like Avery Williams, they had like literally the same exact formation, ran almost the same play, but just one was a jet sweep, another was a handoff up the middle. But they ran it exactly the same. It looked exactly the same. So you could run literally that exact same play, like run it the same way, three different ways. Jet sweep, get handed off up the middle, fake jet sweep, fake the handoff up the middle,
and
and
then
then you
hit him with a play
Drake
action off
or
of it.
Pitts or whoever downfield. There's all kinds of things, and you can swap in Cordell Patterson. You could
Hmm.
have Bijan back there. You could have Algier back there, and then
Like
you could
you,
have Cordero outside or Bijan outside. You can have all kinds of things going on.
I've got it paused here on what you're talking about here. Like you got Avery Williams and Cordell, right?
Yep,
So you do the same thing, but in the backfield, instead of it being Cordell, it's Bijan. And out here, instead of it being Avery Williams, it's Cordell.
yep,
And now you're having that same explosive threat coming out of this backfield off of the same type action.
yep,
And I think that that's where I honestly believe that that's where they're going to generate their big plays.
yeah.
And and like you said, you could take that same formation, run it again. Like in this particular, let me put it back up again because I want to point out something here. I'm not too worried about these two guys right here, right? That's Drake London.
Yep,
Who's on the opposite side? Kyle Pitts.
yep,
So now you have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Cordell Patterson, or let's say it's Bijan and it's Cordell Patterson.
yep,
All of these guys can catch the ball and do damage with it.
yep,
You can't sit here and tell me that you have to prescribe to one way of doing things. That you have to go out there with in 11 personnel with three wide receivers and one running back.
yep.
There's multiple ways to go about attacking a defense.
And well, you have to do that, like, because otherwise you start running into such. How many times? Like, we've definitely heard this over the years. Whether it's for the Falcons, I've also heard this for other teams. It's not just the Falcons, but I've heard this plenty of times over the years, just from NFL defenses. Uh, after the game, maybe not right after the game, maybe in the off season, maybe years down the road or whatever. But it's like we knew exactly what they were doing. Like they didn't break any tendencies. They didn't do
Right.
anything different. They did exactly what we thought they were going to do. And when that happens, even the worst of the NFL defenses are gonna play well against you. If they
Yeah.
know exactly what you're doing, like exactly, then there's a lot of times it doesn't matter how good you are on offense. The guys are going to be there.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so you got to break those tendencies, and I think Arthur Smith, if nothing else, I think has a really good mind for that, but also
Hmm.
a really good mind for we're we can literally stay in the same formation and do 10 different things out of it. So that when we next time we come up in this formation, you don't know what we're going to do. Are we going to run? Are we going to pass? Are we going to do a misdirection? Are we going to do a reverse? Are we going to do whatever? There's just no way to know.
And look, and this is something that instead of whether it's going to work out, we'll see as the year goes on or as the season goes on.
Hmm.
But instead of like killing yourself every year, hoping that you hit the like proverbial like QB lottery
Hmm.
with a freak of nature like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Justin Herbert, why not like try to build an offense almost like a Shanahan as to
Yep.
where it didn't matter. I mean, they were just about to get to the Super Bowl on a third quarterback and it being Brock Purdy.
Yep.
So like
Mr.
build
Irrelevant.
build an offense that doesn't require a freak of nature,
Yep.
to be like, yes, these guys, like if you again, if Ritter falls on his face and you end up with, a different quarterback next year, that's fine. We'll keep it going until we get a guy who's stable enough or who's. But I really feel like in what they're building, you can have success with a guy like Ritter.
Mhm.
And I think that we're going to see that this year. And I think we're going to have an efficient, explosive offense um, based off of the talent that is around the QB position.
Yeah, and you look at like the Mahomes before there was Mahomes was Aaron Rodgers. Now he
Right,
won a Super Bowl. What 3 years into his starting career? Okay, hasn't been back since. All right, and he's had some years more recently than like earlier on. He still had great years, but his defense would always let him down.
right.
But like eventually, the way he made his hay is in some ways the same way that Mahomes makes his hay right now. And that is okay. We're going to call a play. It's probably not going to end up being the play that ends up getting that it's going to end up being because they run the play, stuff breaks down. Mahomes, while he's not looking to run, can escape the pocket really well, and he does that and buys enough time to like have some playground stuff happen down the field. And they know each other well enough by now to know like what's the right thing to do. So they
Right,
all do the right things, but that may not always be the case. Kelsey's getting older; he's going to get retired, so he may not be there for a while. In a while, and then you're going to have just new guys coming in, and that may not always mesh right. And then you run into an Aaron Rodgers situation where Aaron Rodgers has been probably the same guy physically, talent wise, for the last few years, that he maybe not quite the same guy, but pretty
yeah,
close. But like him and his receivers are just not on the right page. So when he's running around outside the pocket looking for things to happen, the guys are just off.
hmm,
And when that happens, if you don't have everything lining up like it's supposed to, then that's where you're going to run into problems. And that's where a Shanahan type offense, if everybody's on the same page, if everybody's marching to the beat of the same drummer, if everything's on time, when things are humming like that, it doesn't matter if you got Brock Purdy in there. It doesn't matter if you got maybe Trey Lance would not have done as well, but uh, you know Garoppolo. You probably pick a number of other guys in the NFL that could be behind that offense last year that probably could have done maybe not as well as Brock Purdy, but they could have done well enough with
Well,
the
then,
that they've got.
and then you take like, okay, so here's the instance, right? You get a Shanahan style offense, which is I think a was stylistically is going to be very similar, like is similar to what we're doing. They have a lot of the same influences as far as their mentors and stuff of that nature.
Yeah,
So what you have here is like, okay, you take Shanahan, he can operate with um, Garoppolo, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, whatever. But what did his offense look like when he actually had a bona fide, like franchise type quarterback? 2016, damn near beat the greatest show on turf. Now, what I'm getting at here is like, yes, I believe the offense can be efficient, be explosive when it needs to be, or like the way they want it to be, get those chunk plays. Uh, but if Ritter isn't the guy, I still think it can perform. I still think that it can like win in spite of him. Hell, it won last year in spite of Mariota at times, right?
yeah,
So, but but if Ritter is the guy,
yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like if Ritter is the guy, like it's going to make it what Tannehill did up in Tennessee, like to another level.
yeah.
And then that with the pieces that we have in place, the Bijons and the Kyle Pitts and the Drake Londons and, Tyler Algier, I think this is going to be a much more explosive offense than what we're anticipating. Everybody's focusing on, oh, it's going to be a methodic run, plodding offense. I don't think that's what it's going to be at all.
I
So,
don't think that's what they. I don't think that's what they want it to be.
I mean, it
I,
can be
I,
at
I
times.
yeah, I think like if we're talking salt the game away, end of the
Right.
game, that kind of situation. Yeah, take
Hmm.
5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes off the clock, and whether you score or not is irrelevant. You just need to run the clock out.
Right.
Then that's perfectly fine, and I hope we're able to do that.
Right.
I think though that because you're not going to be that way every game. I don't care who you are, whether you're the Kansas City Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles. Doesn't matter how good or bad your team is. At some point, you're going to need to score points and score points quick. So
Right.
you have to have the ability to do it. Now, our particular offense and the way things are structured, do I think we can just willy nilly, do it? Maybe. Don't know for sure. I don't think that's necessarily how we're constructed right now. I think the way we're constructed is get the running game going, and everything plays off of that. All
Yep.
right. If we can get the run game going, then that makes everything else much easier. Um, if the run game isn't there, which it really there wasn't many times last year where it wasn't. So I'm hoping for the same production at minimum, whether it's the same or better. But at the very least, I would like to see the same production last year. If we do that with a potentially a better offensive line, we get one of our big weapons back and some of the additions on offense, like we shouldn't have to worry too much about a running game getting going
Nah,
against most teams. And if we do that, it's going to be a really hard offense to stop,
I
and
think
we're
so.
going to see many more of those explosive plays on offense, especially in the passing game, just because I think Ritter's just going to be a better passer.
And like I said, at the end of the day, like it's proven over years of data research, years of analytical studies that like you need explosive plays. And I think that I mean the coaching staff obviously knows that. They're
Yeah,
they're not, they're not uh oblivious to that kind of stuff. I think that the vast majority of fans have one way that they think about explosive plays. And what I've hoped that we have done tonight is give you like a glimmer of a different way to achieve the needed explosion. Because I'm not denying that you need to have explosion. Because if you're methodical every single drive, and it takes you 12 to 14 plays every single drive, A, you're not going to have nearly as many chances, and B, you're going to have to be perfect every drive.
yep,
And the more plays it takes you, the more chances you have of messing up. So you
yep,
need the explosion, and I get it. I just think people look at it, especially here in Atlanta, where you had a very proficient passer, and you had a freak of nature at wide receiver as in Julio Jones. That's how you're used to seeing it, like truly
yeah,
used to seeing it. And I think what you're fixing to see is a much different version, but still
yep.
achieving that same explosion. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as it gets done, right?
That's it.
Same thing in you don't see anybody running the triple option these days because
No,
because for one it's hard to get recruits for that. But at the end of the day, if you are able to get the recruits and you run a triple option and you run it well and you do what you're supposed to do, like if somebody were to come out right now and be able to get the kind of players that like a Georgia or Alabama gets, and then they say, okay, we're going to run the triple option with all of these guys. First of all, there's so many teams in college football that don't even that they probably haven't seen it since maybe Pop Warner.
right,
And then on top of that, you got coaches that haven't had to worry about defending it for so many years. That if they were to do that right now, you'd probably have like a mid '90s Nebraska situation where they're just steamrolling people for at least a couple of years until people kind of come around to like, okay, this is something we got to really bone up on and we got to figure it out. If the Falcons can be that tip of the spear on kind of the cyclical nature of this, where everybody's like, "Oh, we got to find the next Mahomes. We got to be
right.
the air, air it out like
Yeah,
the
Air
Chiefs
Coryell,
do."
like
Yeah,
the air raid style.
exactly. If we've got to do that, and everybody's building not just their offenses, but they're building their defenses to protect against that. So from a Falcons perspective, we can still do the same on defense that everybody else does, which is build a defense to kind of stop that. But then we don't necessarily, but everybody, while everybody else is doing that, we are building an offense that if you just don't have enough meat on the bone on your defense, you're just gonna get run over. And I hope that's the case. We
Right.
won't know until the season comes around. But the way this is looking, the explosive plays are going to come out of the passing game. They're going to come out of the running game. If we see any rise in production as far as explosive plays in the running game, along with an additional 20, 30-ish in the passing game, this offense is going to be unreal.
Right. And that's the thing. I just kind of, like I said, I just wanted to give some, like, shine some light on that, give some hope. I think that, um, it's going to be a lot better than folks are anticipating and thinking.
Yep.
Well, I think that's all we have for y'all tonight. Appreciate y'all joining us. As always, y'all can catch me on Twitter. I'm at Grimm1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan,
At Jonathan M. Holder, come by, say hi.
there you go. We'll be back live on Tuesday, chopping everything up, all things Falcons. Hopefully, we'll have some good fun news to talk about. Maybe some DeAndre Hopkins news. Maybe I doubt it,
Maybe
but
another mock draft.
but no,
What?
no, no.
2024, right?
God no. We ain't thinking about that until minimum December. Anyway, all right, fans. Y'all take care. Y'all have a good night. And as always, rise up.
Rise up.